There are three types of players in roller derby: the blockers, the pivot, and the jammer. The blockers and jammers' jobs are pretty easy to follow, but the pivot can actually take on different roles depending on the scenario. The pivot is essentially a blocker, but with extra privileges and responsibility. Each team can have one pivot on the track at a time, and she wears a helmet cover with a stripe down the middle, like this one. The most common way to describe the pivot is that she's the line leader, and will often help formulate a plan by telling the rest of her blockers what to do. To compare it with another sport, she has a role similar to a quarterback in football. Within the blockers, the pivot is sometimes also assigned the role of jammer helper. She's the one who plays a more offensive role to help her jammer get through the pack. In this scenario, the pivot is sweeping the opposing blockers off the line so the jammer can squeeze past on the side. Along with helping the jammer, the pivot can also be a backup jammer. The jammer can take off her helmet cover and pass it over to the pivot on her team. When the pivot puts the star cover on her head, she becomes the active jammer, while the old jammer becomes a regular blocker. This is called a star pass, and only a pivot can receive the star cover from the original jammer of her respective team. The pivot-turned jammer is now the one who will score the points. However, she does not retain lead jammer status. One last responsibility a pivot has is she's more likely to be called for penalties. When it's unclear who is responsible for an illegal action, like failing to perform the pack, the pivot will often receive the penalty. To learn more about the Winnipeg Roller Derby League, visit us online, like us on Facebook, and follow us on Twitter and Instagram.